Hi guys, this is Dark Prince. Welcome to my YouTube channel Dark Prince Trades. This is my first video in 2022, so hope you all had a wonderful 2021 last year, and let's have a good 2022 for everyone. All right, let's get started with where we are currently with respect to the indexes, SPY and IWM. We'll start with that. I'll start with the SPY here, of course, the big boy as I call it. Below all three SMAs, we know that, and it did break below the 200 SMA critical SMA to be harnessed. Not to be worried about, although it is below the SMA 200, because when I just look at the other indicators with respect to the RSI, the history, it has breached SMA 200 in the past. So daily RSI is at 26, so extremely oversold. And as we are speaking, the futures are popping a bit, but again, the story would continue only tomorrow and day after tomorrow to see how it goes day by day. But first things first, below the SMA 200, and not the first time. It has happened during the COVID crash too, obviously, and then also during the 2018 correction for the US-China trade deal, where it went below the SMA 200, took a long time to really recover and come back, and eventually, we know where we are. So when you just look at this chart, it's extremely oversold, no doubt about it on the daily RSI. The weekly RSI is also somewhere in the midpoint at 44. The worrying factor is that we lost the key support level at 450 after hitting this 479, 480 top with already a shaken month, especially the last month of the 2021. Now we broke below that 450, and this didn't take much longer time, to be honest. It didn't take more grinding here to get to the spot of under 440. It just took few sessions, and we are here at 437. Pretty drastic sell off, and that is why the RSI is at 26 all of a sudden out of nowhere. So we lost the 450. Now, where is the next support going to come? That is a big question. Since we lost the 450, it could bounce up from here because it's already oversold. But then when we just look at the chart, forget about all the RSI, MACD, and all the other indicators that we already have. If I just simply look at only the support and resistance levels, the next key support is at 425, 426 zone. And so with this shakeout below 450, and SMA 200 is also a bit higher now. The question is, can we recover over 440 or the SMA 200? So that is the question now. So we don't know what's going to happen. So what I did is I put three scenarios here. Definitely all these three scenarios are possible in my opinion. The first scenario is basically a downtrend continuation, the sell pressure to be continuing all the way down to a 426, because that's a well-established support zone, as you can see here. So that would act as a key support, although it would hit there and then bounce up from there potentially. So the downtrend continuation towards 426 is the first scenario. It's scenario A. It's not the first or the highest probability in my opinion. I'm just putting it randomly. And the scenario B is, because of the extreme oversold conditions, we will have a relief recovery over the SMA 200, which doesn't mean any confirmation of a bullish reversal, but it's just a quick recovery because it was extremely oversold. And then we need to see if we can break into that 448, 450 levels. Basically, we need to know if the previous support levels can be recovered. At this point, to be honest, the 453, 454 zone could act as a resistance at this point. We need to recover that zone. Otherwise, there could be a pop and there could be a down, and then how the pattern works out in a bearish downtrend wave. So we need to make sure those levels, when reclined or recovered, we need to stay above it in order to continue the reversal. But at this point, like I said, the scenario B is a relief recovery right away from here over the SMA 200, and we need to see how it continues towards the upwards. The scenario C is not just a relief recovery over 450 or over the SMA 200, but also continuing upwards towards the 480 zone. So that is also a possibility in my opinion, because in the past we have seen that although there is a retracement or a pullback, especially a 10% cut from a 480 top to a 440 in such a drastic quick manner, we could see a melt up too. But will that happen? We'll have to wait and watch. So the first things first, we need to create some sort of a support here, and we also need to break the 450 in order to have that bullish movement. But we'll have to wait and watch. All right. I'm moving on to the next one, which is the IWM. So coming to IWM, it's a no-brainer that we have lost all three SMAs a long time ago, not just a new thing that has happened last week. We have seen a complex pattern being formed in the IWM, although there was a bullish movement to break that 245, 230-ish, breaking this 230-ish zone and then getting all the way to the 245 in the November month. We did eventually break down very badly. And then since November, I don't think there was a strong recovery in the IWM space. Although the indexes were moving, many of the small caps were continuing in a downtrend fashion with just small pops occasionally along with the indexes. But now look where we are right now. We broke the 200 support and we closed below the 200, and the next known support, forget about the RSI and all that at this point, the key support that relies is at 190 right now. The 190 has been a support in the past, so that could come into play here, but below that there is a long range to really look at in terms of the downtrend as well as the zones that will come as support. But again, multiple scenarios like the same SPY, because this acts in conjunction with the SPY for most part, although not in terms of the raise in the prices, but at least it moves along with the SPY. So if SPY continues to move, potentially this IWM also will retrace back over the 200 line. But let's see, three scenarios again: a downtrend continuation towards 190 and break below that, it's going to magnet towards that 170. But then if we have any sort of relief recovery, then it's going to be above the 200 price point, and then eventually towards the 210, which was the previous support, by the way, is going to act as a new resistance now going forward. Even if it makes any sort of reversal, that 210 is going to be a key resistance which it has to penetrate in order to be on the bullish trend that has been maintaining for so many weeks. So that would mean a scenario C could also come into play with over a breakout over 210. Then we have 220, break over that, we have 227, which has been a troublesome point in the last few months. So anything breakout over 227 for the IWM, the small cap index, is going to be treated as very, very bullish. But at this point, first things first, we need to maintain over 190. We need to see how we can break into 200 plus. Otherwise, we'll have to look at the below support points going forward. But then if I look at the RSI, the dailies are 21, 24, and then the weekly is at 33, 34. So there is a bit of oversold zones that is coming to play right now. With this much of an oversold on any index, this has to bounce. So I'm looking at some sort of a recovery pretty soon, but then is it going to be a relief recovery or is it going to be a true reversal? We'll have to wait and watch. All right. And yeah, the same thing that happened with the SPY that also happens with the IWM in terms of the 2018 correction that we had, where it fell off from 174 to 126, which is about 40% roughly. And then obviously the COVID, no questions there, because it has to, fall down, and there was this 170 all the way down to 95. So that's why that 170, the old resistance, could be a new support even in a strong correction, that if it has to happen. So I'm not expecting anything below that, to be honest. And right now, first things first, let's see if a 190 holds this, and then we can talk about whether 190 through 170 can happen or not. So let's see, day by day, week by week. That's how I'm going to approach this. Right now, I'm a cat on the wall at this point with respect to the way the indexes are showing. But relief recovery for sure is on the cards. The only question is whether we are going to break out on the top channel or whether we are going to break down towards the bottom channel. That's what we'll have to wait and watch. All right, I'm moving over to the stocks that we have picked up as part of our swing plays. The first one I will start is with the Imcc. It's a cannabis sector stock, and then obviously it is below all three SMAs. The daily RSI is at 23, the weekly is at 37. The old support 220, that has been breached last Friday, and I closed at 213 and new lows there. But then when I look at the history of this chart, there is plenty of places where it had come below the RSI 30 and eventually has bounced even all the way up to 70 in some cases. So this is a strong spot for anyone who's actually adding here. They have a very good RR in my opinion. The resistance is going to be at 273, 302, and then 338 eventually. So those would be the three key resistance points, and 330ish has always been a resistance for quite some time, even in the short term upward reversal that we had last few weeks. So 273, 302, 338 needs to be watched. But then first things first, let's see if we can close over 220. With the way markets behaving, we need to ensure those support channels are maintained in the first place. All right, I'm moving on to the next one, the SQL, SQL as they say it. This has been a non-stop downtrend. The break of 320 support was a clear indication that a new support needed to be established. I personally didn't have discipline in terms of maintaining a stop loss when it broke below the support 320. Rather, I continue to accumulate, and then here I am. Prices at 145, and I think I'm back holding somewhere above 263s, pretty high. And right now, with the way this downturn has maintained, the only thing that can potentially happen is some sort of a news which the company has never released in the past, and that is the only way that this can actually break out. And I've seen some presentations being circulated around in the recent past in all the social media, and there could be a potential catalyst around the cancer angle that could come into play for SQL. If that happens, then we are looking at resistance over 185, 215, 240, 285, and 320 plus. Why 320 plus? Because that was the old support zone that potentially we broke down and then we fell below. So that 320 plus is also going to be a big resistance there. But then first things first, we need to find some sort of a support here. This trend line always seems to bounce, but then how far this is going to bounce is a question now. Again, market is also going to play, the general market is also going to play a major role. But it is what it is. It is in a long downtrend at this point of time. Only a news or a catalyst could potentially help this company move up. And like I said, the company has been very quiet until now, so I'm expecting some sort of news coming out from their mouth pretty soon. The daily RSI is well below 30. The weekly RSI is at 12 right now. Still, like I mentioned, this downtrend needs to be broken at some point. And I've seen many such charts like this, even in Zivo. All of a sudden, volume pours in, and then we start to see huge moves in the multitudes of 2x, 3x, 4x. So we'll have to wait and watch on this sequel. I'm still holding this. All right, I'm moving on to the next one, my favorite one, NVIV. Been trending in a specific channel with the bottom. Every time it hits a bottom, it goes up to the top, and then that resistance and the support has been constantly moving down. Company haven't released the publication PR in the past, although they got an FTA approval. That surprised me. But then let's just look at the technicals first. Daily RSI is pretty decent, still at 38. The weekly is being set at 35. Below the SMA 20 and 50, not so far though. SMA 20 is at 50 and SMA 50 is at 53. And the thing is, it needs to close above those two SMAs. It needs to close above the 20 and the 50 in order to even show that reversal and then magnet towards that SMA 200. Resistance were at 61 in the past. Now there is a 55 resistance coming. And like I said, with the market being a bit shaky, this needs to find a support zone. The one good thing is there was a previous established support in the 45, and it is coming there at this point of time. So there is an established support, at least for NVIV. So as long as that holds, then there is a potential of moving up. Again, those numbers 55 and 61 need to be broken in order to get along with the reversal mode. And there is a 6-month data that we are awaiting on the Inspire 2.0 as well. Hopefully, we get some news around that. All right, I'm moving on to the next one, which is Sgrp, the spiker candidate, as I keep saying. Below all three SMAs, evidently. The support has been broken. Multiple supports have been broken. We had that 130 support, that's gone. The 115 is gone, and now eventually it broke and hit the 102. But the good thing is, it showed a green candle there, and it kind of recovered there, back over that support line. The thing is, it needs to maintain that $1 support, and then eventually the 120 and 130 resistance will come into play. The only good thing about the stock is, it's not the only good thing. There's a lot more good things about the stock is, they have 10x sales, 10 times more sales than their current market capital. And I have no idea why the stock is even trading at these levels. This is not supposed to be here. This is supposed to be, over the 160, 180 mark, pretty clearly. But then this is where it is right now. And I feel like, that there is going to be a big spike coming pretty soon. You look at all those numbers. I've posted that many times on StockWits and Twitter. The QOQ, the YOY, year on year financial EPS growth has been continuously upwards, and in spite of that, this company has been completely ignored by the public market. And then it is sitting at what, $1 right now, and that is no way close to the potential that this company has. So I'm still holding this Sgrp. Would potentially move some of the items, even some of the shares, into the long-term position as well pretty soon. At this rate, I would like to give it more time for it to really do that breakout. Of course, reversal is the first thing that is required, 120, 130 plus. All right. I'll move to the next one. Another long swing for me, EZFL. It's been another one that's constantly on the long downtrend. The previous support of 132 showed some promise. It was trying to break 160, 170 from there. Eventually, that succumbed, courtesy of the general market. And then I believe the current support is at 116. There is a lot of interest coming in the stock in this zone. If you see here, 116, 116, 116. It's been maintaining that support. The only thing is the resistance needs to be broken, is that 145, 165 zone, which definitely needs to be broken. If that breaks out, then we are looking at 2 and 230-ish, bare minimum to be broken out. But then when I just look at the whole company DD, right? 100M is the current valuation, and with the kind of shares that they have, this puts right at $4. That is the value for this company technically, but then it is trading at what, 116 right now, which seems to be very, very cheap at this point of time. I looked at the EMA 72 and EMA 89, EMA 180 and 200 as well on the hourly. It all closely in the zone of 130 and 145 ish. So that, like I said, that 145 resistance needs to be broken in the first place, even to show some reversal. And then we can talk about 165 and $2. But there seems to be a decent support. That is one good thing, in spite of the daily RSI falling below the 30 and the weekly RSI is at 9. So let's see how this holds, is 116, and then we can see how 145 comes in and gets broken at some point. All right, moving on to the next one. This is a new stock that I picked up just a week back. I started adding in the 50s, and it has already hit 39, by the way. It has a crazy downtrend. RSI is at 11. The weekly RSI also hit 30, and it's below all three SMAs, 71, 105, 182. I'm looking at this more as a Bollinger Band play, because every time the BB downtrend continues, there is always a magnet towards the pivot. You can see that, downtrend, pivot, downtrend, pivot, downtrend, pivot, and even the upper channel was tested once. If you all remember, I even charted this stock in October, November timeframe. I believe I charted the stock before this huge spike that came up. So I had this in my watch list, for quite some time. And then, yeah, for that same reason, I felt that, it was at a great deal here. 50s, 40s, 30s. I tell you, with an RSA at 11, I think there is only a handful of stocks that are in this position right now. And this has a huge float, by the way. They also had a reverse split. In spite of that, it has a huge float, not to count that out. But then when you just look at the history, oh yeah, look at that. We are talking about 4 times, 5 times move from the bottom. Okay. From the bottom, it has bounced or spiked all the way that far. And so what is the risk reward here, in my opinion? I believe the risk is pretty low here, although it is constantly losing 5%, 10% every day. But then the reward is also pretty high, in my opinion. Once we break that BB pivot 72, we are looking at $1 plus, with the way the history has framed in the stock, all the way. In spite of being on the downtrend, I tell you, the BB pivot break is going to be a very critical one. But let's have some support shown in the first place. The EMA 70 to 89 is at 47.49. The EMA 200 is at 59 as well. All those are high numbers, which clearly indicates that this stock is extremely, extremely, extremely oversold. So I am going to continue holding this. I know I am down on this from my average of 54 or something, but I don't care at this point, because this stock has the potential to move up very, very high, and we know how these penny stocks really work out sometimes. So I'm going to hold on to this and see what happens with this stock. But extremely oversold, one of the 20 odd stocks that are in this zone in the entire market. So that's why I'm holding on to XELA. All right, the next one is PTIX. This is potentially my number one swing at this point of time. Why? The kind of market that we are dealing with, all the technicals, all the charts, are extremely oversold. We have been adding non-stop as it dips, and then we are still waiting on something to happen with that specific stock. So the only thing potentially can happen with a stock propelling upwards or reversing is only when a news comes. All right. So the catalysts need to play a major role, and PTIX has one such catalyst, which is the IND FDA approval, which is required for PT00114. That is the company's uh, number one candidate in their pipeline that they have. And they did refile as per the hints given on the website that they have refiled it. And the presentation also shows a Q4 refiling. So given about a 30 days time for the FDA approval with all the holidays that came in December, I'm guessing that there is a news coming around the corner, possibly end of January. But I'm just gonna see. I'm just gonna give it the time that is required for that FDA approval and see how it goes. Obviously, there is a 20 billion US dollars potential for the lead candidate as well for the neuropsychiatric disorder treatment that they're aiming at. So the potential is pretty high on this stock. But let's get into the technicals first. Below all three SMAs, another obvious candidate there. The daily RSI is at 23. The weekly RSI is about 29. And right now the Bollinger Band is between 112, 138, and 164, pretty wide. And the support levels, we did have few support levels in the past, which was that 130-ish zone that was lost. And then straight away, there is a drastic drop in the last 4 days from that 130 zone all the way hitting that $1. So this is at a point where it's extremely oversold. In my opinion, anywhere between 1 and 130 should be a good support. But let's wait and watch. Obviously, there is resistance over 147, 168, and then the previous resistances in our earlier swing at 190, 230-ish. Those all will come into play when it starts to move. I'm going to post the chart on StockBits on Twitter with some side notes as well. But then this one's top candidate for me, a strong number one swing for me with the news in play. So if that news gets released, I'm expecting 190 to 230 break, and then there was this previous $4 zones. Potentially, it could hit there. Obviously, given the day, we need to see how the momentum and the volume also come into play. But then this is definitely going to be a much awaited approval news that's going to propel the stock. Hopefully good news comes there, and then we'll see what happens. It's all in the gamble, guys. So it's a biotech stock, and then obviously there are risks involved. But at the same time, with the company statement that was given in the last presentation, they seem to be hopeful of what needs to be done with the FTS review that happened last year. So I'm hoping that the company accounts all that and then releases a good news via the FTA approval. So let's see what happens. But then let's see how this $1 zone holds for PTIX, and see if we can climb over that 120, 130 zone, because that needs to be reclaimed. And anything on top of it, with the news coming into play, it's going to be a great stock to watch for. All right, I'm done with my review of all the swings and all and the indexes. Let's see how the market works out for us in this upcoming week. Take it day by day, week by week, and set your tolerances, guys. There is no point in losing capital when it comes to the stock market. I have learned this the hard way in the past, and so my advice is, even if you have a high conviction, it's okay to set your tolerances, and then you can afford to have few stocks with being down, even if you believe that if it's going to be a long term play. It's okay. You cannot have the best averages in all the positions that you're going to have. So figure out what your conviction level is based on the DD that you've done. See how much they are part of the portfolio, and then set your tolerances accordingly. It's okay to reposition some of your swings based on the market conditions, just to be in align with your goals from time to time. So keep that in mind. Protect your capital as well. But at the same time, these are the times where you should actually take your chances, because extreme oversold conditions is where the market would bounce. And barring any other bad news that is coming the market's way, I believe that there is always a bounce that will happen in the market. So stay strong, stick to your conviction, set your tolerances, and good luck. All right. See you guys in the next session. You all take care. Bye bye.